Good evening, everybody. I've got a little tale to tell today, just some things that I've experienced, not so much me, but observing, and it's made me see life in a different way. It's stuff we already know, but sometimes it can just really hit home. I'm coming from the perspective of is your life fateful? Are you in charge of it? Or is it fate, or can you maneuver your life, or does somebody have control over us? It's that type of, which questions I think we all ask a lot at the moment, to be honest. This is what happened today. I got a text from somebody who's very close to me, somebody young who's working abroad, and they told me that they had an argument with the boss that went on all last night and all this morning, and it was very aggressive and she was shaking, and that they both decided in a not so nice way it was time to go, it was time to move. It was going to happen anyway because it was just a short-term contract. So I'm looking at the chart very quickly, which I hadn't looked at much at all. And she had Mars on her chart ruler. Her chart ruler is in her chart. So you've got this circle that you're born with, and all your planets are splattered around it. And depending on how these planets talk to each other and where they fall, it tends to be your persona, but it's more than that. Mars in real life time is moving and hit her chart ruler. Mars is like aggression, assertiveness, fighting, can be more positive things like athleticism, or it can be things like cutting, slicing. It's got lots of different explanations for what it can actually be, but obviously Mercury is her mind and how she thinks and how she talks, and she had Mars on it, so that very much could be an argument. So the timing, Mars is like a day, really, can hit it off, a great trigger for timing. So I thought, okay, I can see that. And just very, very quickly, just flicking up to the conjunctions, I could see that Saturn in her chart. Saturn is control, structure, organisation, keep your head down and get something of worth out of a situation. That's in her chart. But it had Jupiter on top of it, like transit Jupiter. So it's affecting that. Jupiter is... it's like the free hippie, wild hippie type of planet, which is excess, excitement, movement, freedom. So those two don't rub together. So because that's a slow moving planet, they must have been chatting to each other, these two planets, and saying, do you really want to stay here? Do you feel you feel a bit tied down? And is there something else you'd rather do? And then Mars came along and basically made that into an argument until a decision was made. But what hit me, possibly, I knew it, but it really hit me today, was that I think it hit me because it wasn't nothing to do with looking at your own chart, and it's nothing to do with celebrities. So there's always that distance when you're looking at celebrities' charts. It was somebody who you wanted to help. And it made me think that in some way she'd manifested that situation. There's no other way you can explain that. If the astrology is in your face and I can't get to help, she's over there in that situation that she's manifested. So I'm thinking, okay, material life, what we see in front of us is not what it seems. So my next question is, are we in control of it? Could we have changed that? Could we, when we have these experiences, can you change it? So another example here was, I'm going to keep with Mars here because it's just a quick timer. And it normally can be something that, as I've just said, can be aggressive, assertive, fighting, accidents. Went to Italy. I'd like to go to Italy. Went to Switzerland last year, snowboarding, not looking at my own chart, and then decided to look at my chart possibly 2 days before I went. Mars was on my ascendant just for that a day, maybe 2 days, right towards the end of the holiday. I decided to ignore it. I thought, well, I'm just going to ignore that because it would just put a bit of a blight on the holiday. So on the Thursday, I was going home on the Saturday, I think, knew that's when it was exact. Got on this train. The train system in Switzerland is fantastic. You really feel as if you're in the country because you're just on public transport, and it is just so beautiful. Anyway, queuing up actually to get on the train, and it was busy, and I was like second or third from the front of the queue that was going to go into the train. The train, everybody siphoned out the train, and there was like seconds and we thought that's everybody out. I was behind the woman in front, and so head down, you know, sort of went in. And then this man, and I swear to God to this day, and this is not me trying to manipulate it to make myself feel right, I honestly don't think it is. I guess he took a long time to get out, by which time he'd got to me and this woman, and he is bawling in our faces, shouting really loudly how disgusting foreigners were and that they shouldn't push on trains. And I thought, yeah, I knew this was coming, so I'm going to play with it. I'm going to dance with this one. And I just thought, don't react, just keep moving, sit down and forget about it. So I did that really well, which is, you know, which I was very proud of for that moment in time, and thought, okay, that must be it for the day. Got up to the mountain, and my daughter was snowboarding behind me, and she said, Mum, you landed like a sack of potatoes, and I broke 2 ribs. So this question here, I'm thinking, okay, is that in your control? And the answer is yes and no. You have to be supremely conscious and aware of yourself to be able to change yourself in that moment in time. And astrology can help with that, because you can see it coming up, which is what I did initially. But in that moment in time, I was still me. I was still my chart. So I was on a hill snowboarding. If I wasn't me and I wasn't my chart, I would have been at home knitting, and I would have possibly stubbed my toe where I'm getting a cup of tea. So it's incredibly unusual, not unusual, but I just found that really interesting from looking at it from somebody else's perspective, and how they had co-created possibly with the people that were involved, that reality. Now, to shift that to, can you change it? To some extent, I would guess. But the whole thing that fascinated me is that what we see in front of us, of our eyes, is just our consciousness coming outwards. And that's what actually shook me today in a really weird way. Just before I go, with regards to you almost being like, there used to be a really weird film in the 80s called Tron, where there was this strange man and he was almost like, this is how I remember it, this is a long time ago, he was almost like, had those, you know, those sort of like tubes that come out the back of the dryer, because this is what I swear it was like, almost stuck onto him, and he's experiencing this reality. He's like rigged at something that's digital, and I reckon that's what it, and not in such a cold way, but I think that's what goes on with us, but it's more natural. It just naturally occurs in that way, where our reality is part of who we are, and then we experience it. Now, that is just talking possibly about just us individually, but when you get to everybody contributing to what I guess is some sort of mass consciousness in some way, this may sound a bit so bizarre, what happens is that is going to, I want to say build, but if it's all happening at one particular moment in time, it's going to be there, and you're going to get difficult situations happening. And I remember when I was traveling when I was young, I was always interested in astrology, and I came back and I was in my 20s, I think, and some girls where I lived had started some, which was very rare to get hold of in your 20s, a course with an astrologer. And she said that the chart that they started off with was the Hiroshima bomb. What you're looking at is how we've all contributed to a disastrous event. So what I'm going to leave you with there, but you've got to keep yourself positive. You've got to get beyond your chart as best as you possibly can. No automatic reactions. And that takes huge self-awareness almost. And that's, I guess, what the Age of Aquarius is. It's being detached from yourself to watch yourself in action before it becomes reality. Yeah. Those are my thoughts. It may be too much, but I've had a quiet day today on purpose, and my mind's gone all over the place, and I've fascinated myself. I just find it really interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm going to leave you with that. So yeah, look after yourselves. Bye.